Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point on AFR Talk. I'm Brian Fisher, your congenial, convivial, and amiable, as always, host. There's a conference coming up. Our own Will and Mickey Addison will be at this conference. It's called the At-Large Conference. It's going to be an activist conference for people that want to do something about the culture rot we were just talking about. And I'm honored and pleased to welcome to our decision maker line Shannon White. Shannon White will be one of the speakers at the At-Large Conference. In fact, the title of her workshop next week is the Get Out the Vote Workshop. Shannon, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher.
Thank you, and I'm glad and honored to be here.
Well, Shannon, why don't we begin by having you tell us a little bit about what this At-Large Conference, what is it going to be all about, and why should we be happy that this conference is taking place?
Well, this conference is going to be an awesome thing. As I think we're all in agreement, there has been a void of integrity and morals and just correctness going on in our country. We need a new group, a new breed of elected officials. And this conference is really to help identify that breed and train that breed and give them the resources necessary to be able to run for office, successfully get elected, and represent the American values the way we know they should be represented.
Now, one of the striking things to me, Shannon, and we've started here at AFA, we've started Urban Family Communications, Urban Family Talk with Will and Mickey Addison. Star Parker's got a program on the network. Bishop Harry Jackson does. We're going to keep expanding that. And this is an endeavor on our part to speak the values of truth, the classic American values of self-reliance, dependence upon God, the values of marriage and family, the sanctity of life, to speak these values into the African American community, because, you know, a lot of people in the Republican Party, how do we get more blacks to vote for us? How do we get more Hispanics to vote for us? And I want to get your take on this. My feeling is blacks, Hispanics, whites, it doesn't matter. They're all individuals made in the image of God. They have the same hunger, the same dreams. They have the same capacities. They're all of them free moral agents who can be instructed, can embrace the time-honored values of the Founding Fathers and that whole deal. And so it seems to me what we want to do is just articulate the values on which this country was founded, and it'll resonate with a lot of people in those communities.
I would happen to agree with you on that. In my book, we talk about that a lot, especially the getting out the vote and the messaging. You know, the title of the book is White Folks' Guide to Understanding the Black Community and Get Out the Vote. And the subtext is, at our core, we all want the same thing. We want a safe home. We want security for our family. We want food on the table. We want to feel good about ourselves.
You think about that, Shannon, just, everybody wants the same thing. I don't think
Absolutely.
There's anybody in America that does not want to be happily married, in a stable marriage, a satisfying marriage, does not want to have a family around them, does not want to have a stable income, does not want to have domestic tranquility, all those things. We all have the same hungers.
Absolutely. I would most 100% agree with you. I think the breakdown and the issue comes in when our experiences and our environment kind of can lead folks astray. I think that in terms of those values and reaching the African-American demographic, I think that it's about the message. It's about the way you message. When you talk about, for example, Second Amendment, now we all know that the Constitution says we have the right to protect ourselves. We know that. But what a lot of folks forget is that the Bible also says in several different books and chapters and verses that you have the right to defend yourself and to protect yourself, not to seek vengeance or revenge, but to defend yourself. And I think that specifically for the Christian African-American community, if the message was placed in such a way that pastors could grasp it and feel comfortable to disseminate it to their congregations, we would see a turnaround. For example, you can say, the Second Amendment says, I have the right to bear arms. I have the right to defend myself. But if you say that to a clergyman, to a black clergy person, in the way that you say, how many more times do we want to see youth senselessly murdered in the community? How many more seniors have to feel hostage and victims in their own home? How many more people have to feel like they're fighting their way through a war zone to get to their homes? And the answer is no more, and enough is enough. So the bottom line of both of those statements is you have the right to defend yourself. And I really think it's in the messaging and the delivery.
You know, I was struck by a story I saw the other day, Shannon, talking here with Shannon White. And give us the name of your book again, Shannon, and how people can get a copy of it.
It's called White Folks' Guide to Understanding the Black Community and Get Out the Vote. And you can find it on Amazon.com. You can find it at Barnes & Noble, or you could go to my website, which is Shannon White Ministries.
I was struck by this story I saw that indicated that I think it was in the city of New York. I got the story somewhere here in my stack, but in the city of New York, they were asking people that lived there whether they wanted more surveillance cameras or fewer. And they were surprised that the Hispanic community and the black community wanted more surveillance cameras. And to me, it struck me, well, that's a no-brainer. That's where a lot of the crime is occurring. They want protection from criminal activity, and part of that is just being able to protect yourself from a home invasion or some kind of assault on the street.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, especially, you've got a lot of issues going on in the urban communities. You've got breakdown of the family. You've got a lot of single household families. You've got parents that, because they're single parents, may be working one or two jobs. So you've got a lot of unattended children, which leads to them getting involved in a lot of issues that they don't need to be. Idle hands, and we all know how the rest of that phrase goes. Now, if you were to be able to say to the folks in these communities, you need to be able to defend yourself. With budget cutbacks in the economy, the police are not going to be there to respond in a timely enough fashion if there's an emergency. But if you were properly trained and licensed, you could defend your own. And again, it's not about vengeance or revenge. It's about self-defense.
Now, Shannon, I know from that you were a candidate for governor of New Jersey in 2009, and that you were a Democrat state Central Committee member in New Jersey until you switched your party registration to the Republican Party in 2010. That's a pretty dramatic transition. What led you to change your affiliation from Democrat to Republican?
Well, I'm black, so in most black families, that means you're a Democrat. And if you want to sit at the family table at the holidays, that means you let them think you're a Democrat, whether you believe what the Democrats believe or not. But I finally got to a point where, I guess it was about 2008 or 9, we had made a decision that we were tired of the education system in the town that we lived in, which was a very urban town, and we decided to homeschool our children. And in going through some of the history lessons with them, we were talking about Frederick Douglass, and we were talking about some other African-American leaders that were Republican, and we were talking about the values, their values, the values that we try and instill in our kids, the values that this country was built on. And my son said to me, he says, well, if that's how you feel, and that's what you're teaching us, and that's what you want to believe, then why are you a Democrat? And I said, well, that's a really good question. And he said to me, he says, because it sounds like you're a Republican. And I said, well, I kind of overlooked it, and I talked to some friends of mine, and they informed me that they knew that I was not only Republican but conservative for some time, and it was just that I hadn't realized it yet.
They tumbled to it quicker than you did.
Apparently. But in the black community, it's really about acceptance, because it's almost like that line from Malcolm X. We've been bamboozled, we've been hoodwinked and led astray. Folks actually believe that if you're black, you need to support the Democrats because the Democrats have done all these wonderful things, and look at all these great things they give us.
As we're coming to the close of this segment, Shannon, I want to ask you this question. The title of your book is A White Folks Guide to the African American Community and Get Out the Vote, How to Do That. With Barack Obama being African American, first black president in American history, there was a tremendous amount of focus on issues of race. There might have been some white guilt. People voted for him just to prove they weren't racist, even though they may have disagreed with his policies. Mm-hmm. You see a disconnect in parts of the African community in 2008. The African American community in California overwhelmingly voted for Barack Obama, yet they also overwhelmingly voted for natural marriage. They were the reason that Proposition 8 passed in California, even though the man they voted for president had a different set of values when it came to the issue of human sexuality. What do you think the impact is? Barack Obama, I mean, barring something unforeseen, is not going to be on the ballot in 2016. Is that going to diminish the role that the race issue will play in 2016? Do you think it may open the doors for more blacks, more African Americans, to begin thinking about alternatives to the Democratic Party?
I would like to hope so. I work with a group of young ladies from around the country we have a group called the Last Civil Right. And I'm in New Jersey. We have a member in Arizona. We have another member in Illinois. And these are some of the things that we talk about because it's imperative that as a people we get beyond the race issue. And a lot of black folks like to say, oh, well, white people are still racist and this and that and the other. But for black folks to say, I don't agree with President Obama's policies, but I voted for him because he's black, would kind of say to me that you're not too far off the mark in doing some, that whole pot and kettle calling thing. And I think that the dialogue needs to be to get folks to open their eyes and to vote and to think based on issues. And if we were to do that, we'd be in a much better place.
Our guest has been Shannon White. She will be speaking at the At-Large Conference next weekend. You'll hear more about that. Will and Mickey Addison from Urban Family Communications, Urban Family Talk will be there. She will be conducting a Get Out the Vote workshop next week. We'll talk about more about that conference as we get closer to the date. You can get her book, White Folks Guide to Understanding the Black Community and Get Out the Vote. And Shannon says here that's just volume 1. You got more to come on that?
I sure do.
Well, great. Well, we'll look forward to that. So get that book and go to Amazon.com or to Shannon White's website, White Folks Guide to Understanding the Black Community and Get Out the Vote. Shannon, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to spend some of it with us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Shannon White. We'll be right back after these messages. Don't go anywhere. Focal Point, AFR Talk.